Two of hip-hop's most influential artists gunned it down in separate drive-by shootings less than 6 months apart. For over 25 years, neither killing produced a single arrest. In 2023, that finally changed, but only for one case. Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. became the center of the most famous unsolved murders in American popular culture. The accepted story blames a rivalry between two record labels. The documented evidence tells a far more complicated story. The deaths of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, known to the world as the Notorious B.I.G., left an enduring void at the peak of global culture. Exactly 5 months and 2 days separated the gunfire on East Flamingo Road from the ambush in Los Angeles. These were not random acts of street violence, but targeted executions of generation-defining figures who commanded millions of listeners worldwide. Decades later, despite intensive police resources and global media attention, neither homicide file has produced a final criminal conviction. The official cases remain open, sitting at the tense boundary between cold forensic fact and public mythology. What remains is a dual mystery where the documented record must be carefully isolated from decades of unproven speculation. Tupac Shakur recorded for Death Row Records, a West Coast powerhouse run by Marion Suge Knight. His East Coast counterpart, Christopher Wallace, recorded for Bad Boy Records, founded by Sean Combs. Throughout the mid-1990s, a highly publicized dispute between these two companies and their roster of artists played out across magazine covers, radio interviews, and raw diss tracks. The music press framed the corporate competition as a geographical war, magnifying personal disputes into a coastal feud. While this intense public rivalry came to define the era, no direct causal link has ever been legally established between the business dispute and either subsequent homicide. Instead, the media friction created a volatile atmosphere that shaped how the public and the police interpreted the violence. It is within this highly charged environment that the documented events of September 7th, 1996 began to unfold in Las Vegas. On the evening of September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur and Marion Suge Knight arrived at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas to watch the heavyweight championship fight between Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon. Shortly before 9 o'clock, as the crowd exited into the hotel lobby, hotel security cameras captured a brief physical altercation. The silent footage shows Tupac and his associates confronting a young man named Orlando Anderson, who had reported ties to the Southside Crips gang. Tupac is seen throwing a punch, and Knight's entourage joins in, stomping Anderson to the floor before hotel security breaks up the brawl. While this footage documents the initial violence, it captures nothing of what followed hours later. It does not show the shooting, nor does it identify who carried out the eventual attack. Later that night, Tupac left the hotel riding in the passenger seat of a black BMW driven by Suge Knight. At approximately 11:15 p.m., the vehicle stopped at a red light on East Flamingo Road near Covell Lane. Suddenly, a white Cadillac pulled alongside the passenger side. Rapid gunfire erupted. Multiple rounds tore into the sedan. Tupac was struck 4 times in the chest, arm, and thigh, while Knight sustained a superficial head graze. The Cadillac sped away into the night. Paramedics rushed Tupac to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada, where he was immediately admitted in critical condition. Surgeons removed a lung in an effort to stabilize him, and doctors placed him in a medically induced coma. He remained on life support for 6 days. On September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur was pronounced dead from cardiac arrest. The flashing lights of Flamingo Road faded, leaving behind an immediate and enduring investigative silence. For more than 25 years, no one was arrested for the murder of Tupac Shakur. Investigators faced a wall of silence from the start. Key associates present at the scene refused to talk to police, bound by a strict street code and a deep distrust of law enforcement. Suge Knight, who survived the gunfire, flatly told police he had nothing to say. The physical evidence was equally sparse. The murder weapon, a .40 caliber handgun, vanished. The white Cadillac carrying the shooter slipped into the desert night, never to be recovered. Without a weapon, a vehicle, or cooperative eyewitnesses, the paper trail ran thin. In this vacuum of official facts, a massive collection of public theories flourished, turning a street homicide into one of the most debated mysteries in American popular culture. This persistent gridlock in Las Vegas set a grim precedent. On the night of March 8, 1997, Christopher Wallace attended an after-party for the Soul Train Music Awards at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. In the early hours of March 9th, Wallace departed the venue as a passenger in a GMC Suburban. At 12:47 a.m., the vehicle stopped at a red light at the intersection of Wilshire Boulevard and South San Vicente. A dark-colored vehicle pulled alongside the passenger side. A gunman opened fire, discharging multiple rounds into the Suburban. Wallace was struck 4 times in the chest, shoulder, and thigh. He was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. The attack mechanics strikingly resembled the drive-by shooting of Tupac Shakur 5 months earlier. While the tactical similarities fueled instant speculation of a connected conspiracy, investigators found no forensic proof linking the 2 homicides to a single gunman or organization. Decades later, the case file remains open at the Los Angeles Police Department. No arrests have ever been made in connection with the murder, leaving the death of Christopher Wallace as a parallel, unresolved mystery. In the absence of immediate arrests, speculation filled the investigative void, generating a series of unproven claims that came to define both cases. The most prominent allegation links the 2 homicides directly to the corporate rivalry between Death Row and Bad Boy Records. While the public and the media framed the violence as a fatal extension of this bi-coastal feud, law enforcement has never established a legal causal link between the business dispute and either shooting. A separate common perpetrator allegation suggests that a single criminal network or hitman executed both operations. Proponents point to the identical drive-by tactics at red lights, but ballistics and logistics across state lines remain completely disconnected. Nevada and California authorities continue to treat the files as entirely separate homicides, with no joint indictment ever pursued. Perhaps the most legally contested claim emerged from the Wallace family. In a high-profile civil lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles, the family filed an allegation that a corrupt, unnamed LAPD officer had active connections to the shooting and helped facilitate the attack. The city vigorously contested the accusation, and a judge ultimately dismissed the lawsuit without finding any officer or the department liable. No criminal charges ever resulted from the civil proceedings. Over the years, independent journalists and retired investigators have proposed various other suspects and conspiracy theories, yet for more than 2 decades, none of these outside theories produced a single indictment. The massive divide between public theory and prosecutable proof remained absolute, leaving both files cold until a sudden legal development in Nevada fundamentally altered the direction of the investigation. On September 29, 2023, the decades-long silence surrounding the Las Vegas investigation shattered. Police arrested Dwayne "Keffy D" Davis near his Henderson home, marking the first formal arrest in the Tupac Shakur murder case in more than 25 years. A Nevada grand jury indicted the former Southside Crips leader on a charge of murder with a deadly weapon with a gang enhancement. The indictment relied heavily on Davis's own public statements. In a 2008 recorded interview with federal agents and later in his 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend, Davis described his role as the coordinator of the retaliatory strike, claiming he procured the firearm and handed it to the passengers in the back seat of the Cadillac. In court, however, self-reported involvement is not automatic proof of guilt. While prosecutors present these admissions as a confession, the defense argues they were embellished for entertainment and financial profit. This arrest is a formal legal action rather than a conviction. The proceeding remains active, and the defendant is presumed innocent. The charges do not resolve every outstanding question of that night. The prosecution does not establish the physical identity of the shooter, nor does it identify every participant in the vehicle. Most importantly, this development in Nevada provides no legal or forensic bridge to the murder of Christopher Wallace in Los Angeles. While one case finally enters a courtroom, the other remains entirely unsolved. Christopher Wallace's murder has never resulted in a single arrest to date. For nearly 3 decades, the homicide file at the Los Angeles Police Department has remained cold, leaving the case completely unresolved. This stands in sharp contrast to the recent developments in Nevada, yet even with an active prosecution in Las Vegas, the murder of Tupac Shakur is only partially resolved. An indictment is not a conviction, and the legal system requires a standard of proof that decades of public speculation and media theories cannot satisfy. The primary barrier in both investigations has always been the wide gap between popular consensus and prosecutable evidence inside a courtroom. Witness reluctance, driven by fears of violent retaliation and a strict street code of silence, immediately stalled both cases from their earliest stages. Over the 3 decades that have elapsed since the shootings, key individuals have died, critical physical evidence has disappeared, and eyewitness recollections have naturally faded. Without recovered murder weapons, traced getaway vehicles, or cooperative eyewitnesses, investigators were left with conflicting accounts and circumstantial narratives that failed to meet the rigorous standards of criminal law until the ongoing legal proceedings in Clark County reach a final verdict, and until Los Angeles detectives secure actionable new leads. Both of these historic homicides remain formally unsolved. Away from the police files and the courtroom dockets, the actual legacy of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace lives on through their art. Their deaths at the absolute heights of their careers cemented them as American cultural icons, establishing 2 young men as permanent figures of modern music, while their murders generated decades of public speculation, books, and films. Their artistic contributions survived the violence. These cases remain heavy symbols of unresolved justice from the 90s, yet the music they left behind continues to shape global culture, proving that their voices and influence far outlasted the unresolved circumstances of their deaths. Today, the courtroom remains the final, unfinished battleground for justice. As one trial slowly moves forward in Nevada, the other case remains completely silent. The ultimate question is no longer who pulled the trigger, but whether the legal truth will ever catch up to their monumental legacy. Share your perspective in the comments.